You take a shower every day. You brush your teeth. You wash your hands. Physical hygiene is a non-negotiable pillar of our routine. It's an automatic ritual to remove dirt, bacteria, whatever might harm us. Now, apply this same logic to your inner world. Your mind, over the course of a single day, accumulates an immense amount of mental dirt. Residue from stressful conversations, dust from future worries, mud from past regrets. Negative, self-critical, anxious thoughts. They cling to you like pollution. If you never stop to perform mental hygiene, this dirt accumulates day after day until your natural state becomes cloudy, heavy, toxic. What is mental hygiene? It is the deliberate practice of observing and clearing your own stream of thoughts. Most of us live fused with our thoughts. We believe we are our thoughts. If a thought says, "You are a failure," we accept it as an absolute truth. We don't stop to question, where did this thought come from? Is it useful? Is it true? I lived like this for decades. My mind was a tyrant. A constant stream of self-criticism and worry governed my state of mind. I was a prisoner inside my own head, and the most tragic part is that I didn't even know the cell door was open. I believed that critical voice was me. The first tool of mental hygiene is detached observation. It's what Eastern traditions call mindfulness. Imagine yourself sitting by the bank of a river. The thoughts are the boats passing by. Some are beautiful, others are ugly, some are on fire. Your job is not to jump into every boat and be carried away by the current. Your job is to just sit on the bank and watch. There's the thought of anxiety about work. Look, the boat of regret about what I said yesterday. Interesting, the canoe of self-criticism just passed by. When you practice this, something magical happens. You create a space between you, the observer, and your thoughts. And in that space lies freedom. You begin to realize that thoughts are just thoughts. They are fleeting mental events, not unchangeable facts. You don't have to believe them. You don't have to act on them. You can simply let them go. Another powerful tool is writing. The journal is the toothbrush of the mind. When you externalize your worries, fears, and confused ideas on paper, you take them out of the vicious cycle of rumination. Writing forces clarity. A thought that seems like a terrifying monster in the darkness of your mind, when exposed to the light of paper, often reveals itself to be small, illogical, manageable. It's an act of disinfection. You are taking the mental trash out and putting it where it can be examined and discarded. Mental hygiene also involves actively choosing what to focus on. Just as you wouldn't choose to roll in the mud after taking a shower, why would you choose to ruminate on an offense or a worry repeatedly? This requires practice. When you find yourself stuck in a negative thought loop, ask yourself, is this thought serving me in any way? If the answer is no, consciously redirect your attention to something else. To your breath. To the sound of the birds outside. To a grateful memory. This is not about toxic positivity or ignoring real problems. It's about not allowing negativity to become your default habitat. Problems need to be solved, but rumination solves nothing. It only deepens the groove of pain. Take care of your mental hygiene. Set aside a few minutes every day, perhaps in the morning or before bed, for this cleansing ritual. Sit in silence. Observe your thoughts without judgment. Write down what is weighing on your heart. It is an act of self-love as fundamental as brushing your teeth, but with infinitely more profound consequences for your peace of mind. You wouldn't go days without showering. Why do you go so long without cleaning your mind? For the warrior's rest, the art of disconnecting. An athlete knows that rest is as important as training. It is during sleep and on off days that muscles repair, strengthen, and grow. Training without rest leads to injury, burnout, collapse. The body has its limits, and ignoring them is a recipe for disaster. Our mind, likewise, desperately needs rest. And herein lies one of the greatest paradoxes of our age. We are more tired than ever, but we rarely truly rest. We confuse rest with distraction. After an exhausting day of mental work, what do? We dive into more stimuli. We scroll through social media, binge-watch frenetic TV series, play video games. We are exchanging one type of mental effort, focused, productive, for another, reactive, dopamine-consuming. It's like finishing a marathon and, to rest, deciding to run a 100-meter dash. Your brain never truly switches off. It's always processing, reacting, consuming. True mental rest is the absence of stimuli. It is silence. It is boredom. It is nothingness. And this terrifies us. Being alone with our own thoughts has become a form of torture. Silence is so rare that when we encounter it, it sounds like a scream. We immediately reach for our phones to fill it. What are we avoiding? What do we fear finding in that empty space? Perhaps the questions we don't want to answer, the feelings we are suppressing, the uncomfortable truth about our lives. I was addicted to being busy. Busyness was my shield, my excuse for not dealing with myself. If I was always working, always consuming, always moving, I wouldn't have time to feel the emptiness, the loneliness, the dissatisfaction that bubbled beneath the surface. My burnout was a symptom, not of the amount of work, but of my inability to stop. Learning to truly rest is a skill, and like any skill, it requires practice. Start small. Set aside 10 minutes a day to do absolutely nothing. No phone, no music, no book. Just sit and look out the window. At first, it will be unbearable. Your mind will scream for distraction. But if you persist, something begins to change. The initial noise subsides. New ideas, insights, and solutions to problems that plagued you begin to emerge from the silence. It's like letting the water of a stirred lake settle. Only then can you see the bottom. Nature is one of the greatest sanctuaries for mental rest. A walk in the forest, sitting by the sea, looking at the stars. These acts reconnect us to something larger and slower than our frantic pace of life. Nature demands nothing of you. It has no notifications. It simply is. And in its presence, our mind can finally let its guard down and breathe. Sleep is the most fundamental form of rest, and we chronically disrespect it. We take our phones to bed, polluting the final moments of our day with the blue light and anxiety of the outside world. Protecting your sleep is protecting your sanity. Create a nightly ritual. Turn off screens an hour before bed. Read a paper book. Drink a hot tea. Turn your bedroom into a sanctuary for rest, not an extension of your office. Rest is not a luxury, it is a biological necessity. It is not laziness, it is a smart strategy. It is in the silence, in the pause, in the disconnection that the mind heals, reboots, and finds clarity. You cannot expect to draw clean water from a well that is never replenished. Allow yourself the gift of nothingness. It is the most productive gift you can give yourself. 5. The emotional checkup. The courage to look within. You have annual checkups with your doctor. Blood tests, blood pressure measurement, a general assessment to ensure everything is working as it should. You understand that prevention and early diagnosis are crucial for long-term health. It's an act of responsibility. Why do we treat our emotional health with such disregard? We wait until the pain is unbearable, until anxiety paralyzes us, until depression consumes us completely, to then maybe consider asking for help. We treat our mind as if it should be infallible, and any sign of weakness is seen as a character flaw, a taboo to be hidden. Having an emotional checkup is the act of courage to look within with brutal honesty. It's asking yourself, how am I really? What am I feeling? What is causing me pain? What patterns of behavior am I repeating that sabotage me? For a long time, I avoided these questions as if they were a plague. Living on the surface was easier. I distracted myself, worked more, pretended everything was fine. But the truth is like water, it always finds a way. My unresolved issues leaked out in the form of irritability, insomnia, failed relationships. I was trying to fix the symptoms without ever looking at the cause. An emotional checkup can take many forms. Self-reflection is the first. Take time regularly to sit with yourself and take inventory. What brought you joy this week? What caused you stress? Where did you feel strong? Where did you feel vulnerable? Where did you act in line with your values, and where did you betray yourself? The journal, again, is an invaluable tool here. It becomes the medical record of your soul, revealing patterns over time that you would otherwise never notice. But sometimes self-reflection is not enough. Sometimes we are too trapped inside our own story to see it clearly. We need an external mirror. And this is where the importance of talking and, if necessary, seeking professional help comes in. In our culture, there is a strange glorification of the silent sufferer. The one who endures everything alone without complaining. We see it as a sign of strength. But true strength is not in carrying an impossible burden alone. It's in the humility and courage to admit that you need help to carry it. Talking to a trusted friend, a partner, or a family member can be incredibly healing. Being heard, being validated, without judgment, can relieve an immense weight. But friends are not therapists. And there are times when the complexity of our wounds requires the skill of a trained professional. Going to therapy is not a sign that you are broken. It is a sign that you are committed to your healing. It's the equivalent of hiring a personal trainer for your body or a financial advisor for your finances. It's an investment in your own health. A therapist is a trained guide who can help you navigate the often frightening terrain of your own inner world. They can provide you with tools, help you identify blind spots, and offer you a safe space to process whatever you are facing. The stigma surrounding mental health is one of the most dangerous traps in our society. keeps us sick, isolated, and ashamed. Breaking this stigma starts with each of us. It starts with normalizing the conversation about feelings. It starts with accepting that it's okay not to be okay. Do your emotional checkup regularly. Be honest with yourself. Be vulnerable with those you trust. And don't hesitate to seek help when you need it. Tending to your emotional wounds is not weakness. It is the most profound act of strength and self-love you can perform. 6. Building the inner fortress: resilience and boundaries. So far we've talked about maintenance, exercise, diet, hygiene, rest, checkups. These are the essential practices for keeping the mind healthy. But there is another level. It's not just about avoiding illness, but about building proactive strength. It's about forging a resilience so deep that when the inevitable storms of life arrive, you may sway but you will not break. It's about building your inner fortress. The body becomes stronger through stress and recovery. A bone that breaks and heals correctly can become stronger at the point of the fracture. Mental resilience works in a similar way. It is not the absence of adversity, it is forged in the fire of adversity. Every time you face a fear, every time you deal with a disappointment, every time you go through a period of pain and come out the other side, you are adding a brick to your fortress. The mistake we make is trying to avoid any and all discomfort. We want a life without pain, without challenges. But such a life would produce a fragile and brittle mind, unable to cope with the slightest setback. Stoic philosophy teaches us a lot about this. The Stoics practiced what they called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. They actively imagined the worst-case scenarios, losing their wealth, their health, their loved ones. This was not an exercise in masochism, but a form of mental vaccination. By exposing themselves to these fears in a controlled environment, they became less terrifying. They built a resilience that prepared them for reality, which is by nature uncertain and often painful. You can practice this in a milder form. Ask yourself, what's the worst that can happen in this situation? And would I survive it? Most of the time the answer is yes. You will realize that your ability to handle difficulties is much greater than your fear leads you to believe. Another fundamental pillar of the inner fortress is the ability to set boundaries. If your mind is a fortress, boundaries are its walls and its gate. You decide who and what gets in. Many of us were taught to be nice, to say yes when we wanted to say no, to always put the needs of others before our own. This is not kindness, it is self-abandonment. Every time you say yes to something that drains your energy, that violates your values, that disrespects your time, you are letting an invader into your fortress. Learning to say no is one of the most important skills for mental health. A clear and respectful no is not an act of aggression, it is an act of clarity and self-respect. It means that you know your own limits of energy, time, and emotional capacity, and you are honoring them. I used to be a person who said yes to everything. I was afraid of disappointing others, of being seen as selfish. The result was that I lived in a perpetual state of exhaustion and resentment. My fortress had no walls, it was an open field where anyone could come in and take what they wanted. It was only when I learned with great difficulty to say no that I began to reclaim my energy and my peace. A no to others was often a yes to myself. Building your inner fortress is an ongoing process. It's strengthening yourself through challenges rather than running from them. It's defining and defending your boundaries with courage. It's understanding that you cannot control the storms that come from outside, but you can and must ensure that your internal structure is strong enough to withstand them. Your mind should not be a fragile shelter, but a citadel. The body ages. Physical strength diminishes. The outer beauty for which we fight so hard inevitably fades. It is the relentless law of time. But the mind can continue to grow, to deepen, to become wiser and more resilient until our last breath. It is the only investment with truly eternal returns. Caring for your mind as you care for your body is not a poetic suggestion. It is the most urgent and fundamental task of your life. It's recognizing that your well-being, your happiness, and your peace do not depend on external circumstances, but on the quality of your inner world. Exercise, diet, hygiene, rest, checkups, and building boundaries. These are not abstract concepts. They are daily practices. They are choices made at every moment. The choice to read a book instead of scrolling the feed. The choice to sit in silence instead of seeking distraction. The choice to confront a painful thought instead of suppressing it. The choice to say no when your entire being longs for peace. You are the architect of your soul. You have the power to demolish the structures that imprison you and build a new inner dwelling, a fortress of serenity and strength. The journey is not easy. It requires courage, discipline, and brutal honesty with yourself. There will be days when you will fail. but every small act of care is a brick added to your foundation. So, I ask you now, at the end of our time together, what will be your first step? Perhaps it's turning off your phone an hour before bed tonight. Perhaps it's writing one page in a journal. Perhaps it's finally having that conversation you've been avoiding. Or perhaps it's simply stopping, taking a deep breath, and asking yourself for the first time in a long time, how am I really? The choice is yours. The work begins now. Take care.